Hello everybody, good morning and welcome to the United Stand. Hope you're all doing well for your latest Manchester United news. It's funny because Clayton in the chat says that I bet Goldbridge is finishing up on Google for the morning show. You couldn't be more correct, Clayton. There's so much to dive into this morning. Look, even an update from myself. I want to just sort of hit this straight away to give you a bit of a boost this Monday morning before we talk about something very serious. But a bit of a boost to start off with. I was speaking to an agent last night and basically... since Erik Ten Hag has been officially appointed, which is yesterday morning, Manchester United's phones are effectively ringing off, to coin a phrase, because obviously agents and players who are looking to move this summer have been approached by Man United. They're now approaching Man United because they're intrigued and excited by this Ten Hag appointment as well. It doesn't mean that you've got Erling Haaland saying, I want to come to Man United. That's not what we're talking about. But we have got a situation where people know what Man United's vision is now. They know what Erik Ten Hag is. And that makes us far more attractive than we were 2 weeks ago. Bit of a blow around Tchouaméni. We'll talk about that in a minute. We'll talk about the 5 players that Erik Ten Hag wants and go through a raft of information from all sorts of sources to talk about. But the first 2 things I want to talk about first of all. We were live yesterday for the preview for the Arsenal game tomorrow. And obviously this news broke that there'd been an email sent to Harry Maguire, a threat, a bomb threat or something like that. And it hit just as we were live, and instantly, we spoke about it, and as anybody would say, it's absolutely disgusting behaviour. We don't know the full facts of it, but on the face of it, it's absolutely disgusting behaviour. Of course, it is. I don't do the Thursday night show, and just basically got bombarded yesterday. Bombarded with what I would describe as twats. Sort of tagging me into stuff, abusing me, abusing our community, saying that we've driven this bullying of Harry Maguire, and that is why somebody from I don't know whether they think it's our community or whatever, has sent this email. Absolutely ridiculous, absolutely disgusting, and I'm talking about the email that's been sent. And I just want to sort of defend our community a little bit and say that, look, if anybody's been watching this show, we've been running this show for years now, years and years, long before Harry Maguire or Paul Pogba or anybody ever came to this club. So to say that we're bullying players, I mean, come on, people need to grow up. This is a fan community. I've been down the pub 20, 30 years ago and people have been slating players. I've been in grounds at Old Trafford in the early noughties and people have been slating players. Saying a player's not good enough to wear a Manchester United shirt or an Arsenal shirt or any shirt, or saying they're shit on Twitter, is not the same as somebody directing personal abuse or threatening them. And that's never the same. Do you want to live in a snowflake society where people are not allowed to walk into a restaurant and say they don't like the food they're served? Or ask to change a carton of milk because it's leaking on the checkout at Tesco? You can't do that. You can't do that. That's offensive. Of course you can do that. Of course you can do that. I think Ricky Gervais is a brilliant comedian and he speaks about this much better than me. Of course you can have an opinion on something. You cannot be offensive, you cannot threaten people, but you can have an opinion on something. And secondly, when we're talking about this community, we've raised tens of thousands of pounds for charity. We've been doing this for years and years and years. And I've constantly said, when people have attacked me or we've spoken about it, personally, I hate violence. I hate it. It's not the way to solve an argument. It is not at all. And I can sit here with a clean conscience as the presenter of this community and say that feelers have been put out in the past to these particular players about a conversation and a way forward, of which they've ignored. So do not come attacking this community or proper football fans in relation to something that's now being dealt with by the police, because I have never seen anybody in our chat or our community on our channel come out and direct people to send vile threats to other human beings. So I'm going to call it out because, and this pretense that everybody who watches the United Stand is 12 or 13. I'll print off the demographics of who watches this channel because you'd be very surprised. There's a lot of people who watch this channel who are over 40. So, the great thing about this is that it leads into something else as well. Amongst all that, I'm being tagged in. I'll give it 3 games before Goldbridge is saying Ten Hag out. And at that point, the penny drops that these people are just as bad as the people who send abuse to other people because they don't watch our community. They've got absolutely no idea. But for the last 2 months, we've been a very positive community. We've been talking about the future. We've been talking about Erik Ten Hag, which we're going to do in a couple of minutes. And also, people will also know if they watch this content, I was very late on Mourinho out. I was very late on Solskjaer out. So, look, you know what? Live and let live. And, you know, let's hope that the people who are doing these vile things are brought to justice. But to level it at people who are having an opinion on a player, I'm sorry, I'll bring you something a bit topical here. Morning, Mark. We've heard Ollie's at the wheel. We've heard Rangnick's at the wheel. I want Erik ten Hag to break the wheel, says Rudy. Me too. Glad that you're not affected by views. Stay strong, says Salvish. The thing that I wanted to bring in, and I'll bring in now, is this is topical. Like, so we're getting into the news now. Last night on Instagram, there was some post by Manchester United. Somebody replied saying Varane and Bailly centre-back partnership. Eric Bailly replied with a, you know, basically saying, yes, it should be me. Oh, Eric Bailly, should he be kicked out the club now? Because that's Ante, Jones, Lindelof and Maguire. I mean, what world are we living in? I'm going to say something now. Eric Bailly should be playing tomorrow with Raphael Varane. That's my footballing opinion. I mean, somebody tagged me into something this morning. I think it's from some stat site. Apparently, we've got 5 of the top 10 players this season who have given the ball away leading to a shot on goal in the whole Premier League. 5 of the top 10. I think Shaw's in there. Matic is in there. I think Harry Maguire is actually number 1. So there is substance to Eric Bailly saying he should be playing at centre-back. There is substance to people calling our players out. It is not a hate campaign. It is not bullying. We are the worst Manchester United side in Premier League history. It's a fact. If people are not happy about that and they're not happy with some of the players, they can deliver the facts. It's as simple as that. And welcome to the Members Club, Anthony Nolan. So, look, I will repeat what I said in the preview yesterday. Some of these players who played on Tuesday night should not be playing tomorrow. I think they will do. But I don't think they should do. But in relation to being sent an email that threatens your family, it's out of order. And obviously we had this with Victor Lindelof in January. His house got burgled while he was playing football, and his family were in the house at the time. He had to miss a couple of games, didn't he, because it was so traumatic. You know, maybe Harry Maguire won't play tomorrow because of that. I mean, if it's so traumatic as it appears to be, there's no way he'll be playing tomorrow, and that's very sad that he's not playing for those reasons. So I don't think he'll be playing tomorrow anyway, because if this story that's come out is as serious as people say it is, and it sounds serious, no way would you be playing a football game within a couple of days of it if you're taking that threat seriously. So that's sad. That's the saddest thing, is that I don't think he should have been playing on Saturday. I don't think Rashford should be playing. I don't think Bruno should be playing. I thought they were an embarrassment on the football pitch on Tuesday, but they should be dropped by a manager in a club that realises that. They shouldn't be missing a game because some lunatic has taken it on their hands to go and send something that's going to cause trauma. You know, we've had that happen to a few of our players for different reasons this season, and nobody wants to see people missing games because they've got family issues. And no right human being is going to say anything opposite to that. Mark, I'm 48 and I'm a member of Must and the United Stand and a ticket holder. To say only kids listen to you is redundant, pal. Keep up the good work. Thank you, Stephen. Welcome to the Members Club, Trigger. And hi, Mark. What's your ideal summer transfer? Well, we're going to get into that now, Noah. Mark, I think the biggest challenge for Erik ten Hag is not the real build, but the media and the ex-players punditry. I think you're absolutely spot on, Soham. But I'm going to say something right here, right now, because I don't, and we don't play for likes. That's not what we're about. We're about opinion. We've always been about opinion. I was on a show last night, on an Arsenal show, really enjoyed it, and basically asked about what's the principles of the show. And the principles of the show have always been that I don't care if people don't agree with what I say or any other guests say or people in the chat say. That's the whole point. If it generates a conversation, is that not what it's all about? I cannot stand living in a society where, I'd hate to live in a snowflake society where you can't say things and you've just got to say a certain thing. That's not living, that's existing. I love debate, I love conversation, I love different opinions. I love it when people say to me that Henderson should be in goal over David De Gea, because I completely disagree, but they're passionate about it as well. And yes, we're having a debate, that's what it's all about. And I will say this as well. You know what? I won't always be Erik ten Hag in. I will be Erik ten Hag in for a long, long time. I know that. I know it's not. I'm not going to change my opinion after 4 or 5 games, because I didn't do it with Mourinho and I didn't do it with Ollie, and I didn't really. I prefer Ten Hag to those two anyway. So I will stick with him for a while. But there will be a point if it goes wrong where I say, look, I got it wrong. I got it wrong. Get rid of him. That is on that is there. I don't want to do it. I don't think I'll do it. But I'm not going to say it's impossible. Because ultimately, I've got no idea whether this guy's going to be true. And you know what, also, let's get into some news here. So, Totally agree, Mark. If they're looking for someone to blame, it's the club for keep playing underperforming players, says Kevin. Look, I don't think anybody should be blamed for people putting threats at other people. But you know what? I don't think the club have handled things great. I don't think the clubs have handled things great. And in no way am I saying the club are responsible for players getting hate and vile abuse. That's this, I don't think anyone's responsible for that. If someone says jump off a cliff and you jump off it, then you're responsible, not the person who tells you to do it. But the point I'm going to make is that the club have been ignoring the fan base all season. This winning team photos when you've just lost at the weekend, it's not a good idea. The club are doing it because there's a sponsor. You know these winning team photos that piss everybody off, or we go again and all that lot after a bad result? I don't think the players want to do it. The club have to do it because it's all about the sponsor that they've got on the shirt. But it riles fans up. You're basically adding petrol to the fire. If we have a bad result or a bad run of results and then on a Wednesday we see the players smiling like this, do you think those players really think it's a good idea? They're doing it because they're contractually obliged to do it. So Man United need to look at their whole football club from now on and start acting more professionally and befitting of what this football club is. We've become a circus and we've become a pantomime, and it has become ridiculously toxic. Mark, personally, I find a lot of peace and comfort watching the United stand and look forward to the daily shows, says Soram. Me too, mate. Welcome to the Members Club Creative Dimensions. Mark, I think the big have done that one as well. And Trigger, welcome to the Members Club. If you want to join the Members Club, you're very welcome. Exclusive content. We've got our next video coming up about 1 o'clock today. It's Nkunku head-to-head with Bruno, which is what you voted for. So you get your little badge next to your name like Noah, and we've got exclusive content on for you as well, which is in addition to everything else you get on this fantastic community that we have built. Let's get into the news. There's lots to talk about. So I think the first thing I want to talk about is coming from the Times that, and this is a vindication of what we've been talking about for a while. The Times are basically saying, I need a sip of coffee. There's so much to get into this morning. And as well, Ralph Rangnick's press conference, we're live at 12. So I can't be live too long now because we're back alive again at midday. Don't know why he's doing it so early, but, fair play. And if you're interested in my FIFA career mode for Manchester United, it's Cup final day. We've got knockout game against Bayern Munich in the Champions League, and we've got the Carabao Cup final against, I can't remember who it is, but if you're interested in FIFA. But back to real life. We'll start off with this story by the Times, and it's a vindication of what we've been talking about for a couple of weeks. Remember, people have been talking about £20 million, £200 million, headlines of this, headlines of that. Welcome to the Members Club, Fergie. The story in the Times is that Erik ten Hag has got 120 million quid to spend this summer, but he can add to that by selling players. Now, this fits in perfectly with what we've been talking about on here for a couple of weeks. That transfer budget that Erik ten Hag has got is around 100 million quid, no less. He's got 100 million quid, but it will be added to by wages being saved by people walking out the club like Cavani and Pogba. There's about 20 million there, and then sales as well. So he will be able to push that north of 150 million quid, which is what we've always been on about. Now, what players does he want? What players does he want to keep? Etc, etc. We delve into some stories here, and I'm combining stories from the Telegraph, the Times, and a few others here. But the general, otherwise we'll be here all day. So the general feeling is that he wants 5 players. Give me 5. He wants 5 players. He wants a centre-back, a CDM, a striker, a wide player, and a midfielder, and potentially a right-back. But he wants 5 players. The priority is the CDM. It's the most difficult position. Now, there's some stories coming in, which unfortunately I've always felt were the case, that Tchouaméni's done a deal with Real Madrid. There was a story 3 weeks ago that he'd done a deal with Real Madrid. So it doesn't surprise me if Tchouaméni goes to Real Madrid. The big headache United have got at the moment is striker and CDM. Now, I'm going to defend the club here, and this has got nothing to do with Ten Hag. I think there's a bit of a negative story going on about Ten Hag at the moment as well. I just want to warn you about, but we'll talk about that in a minute. United desperately need a CDM. We're probably not going to be in the Champions League. In fact, we'll probably find that out this time tomorrow when we get beat by Arsenal, if we get beat by Arsenal. But I think that in relation to the CDM, Tchouaméni or Declan Rice, for me personally, would be the 2 signings that if we got either of them, I'd go, we've sorted it, solved it, completed it, mate. It's done. Of course, they could not work, but I think Rice and Tchouaméni, if you actually look at them statistically, what they're doing, their development paths, their growth levels, etc., those 2 players, one of those as our CDM, absolutely perfect. There's not really, they're almost dead certs. Unless they get bad injuries or their careers fall off a cliff, their trajectory is that they're going to be very good players. Tchouaméni, doesn't look like we're going to get. Declan Rice doesn't look like we're going to get. What are you going to do? Are you going to get angry with the Glazers? I actually don't think you can. I think, if anything, I actually don't get negative about things that are just not worth getting negative about. And ultimately, what are we supposed to do? It's nothing to do with Ten Hag. It's nothing to do with Richard Arnold. It's nothing to do with John Murtagh. Declan Rice is ridiculously priced and wants to go to Chelsea. Tchouaméni plays for Monaco and probably wants to go to Real Madrid. And even if it did come to the Premier League, we wouldn't be in the Champions League. They are the elite number one choices, but they're very hard to get when you're in a position where we are. You can't talk about a 3 or 4 year rebuild and being rock bottom and then expect to sign Tchouaméni or Declan Rice. We're going to have to be different. We're probably 2 or 3 years away from being able to sign a Declan Rice or a Tchouaméni. Now, if we get one of them, I'm standing up and applauding again, like we got Ten Hag. But I'm going to be fair and say, as frustrating as it is not to get the best possible target, you're a hypocrite if you're moaning about it, because ultimately, look at where we are as a club. Worst ever Man United Premier League side, right at the bottom of the barrel, not in the Champions League, and yet we think we're going to buy 2 of the best midfield prospects in the transfer market this summer. You've got to be realistic. Most emotionally stable United don't wish ill fate on Harry Maguire. We just want players to be picked on merit and not by criteria. To catch Liverpool, United need to start acting like that as well. So Stone of Folly. Well, as I've said, I absolutely do not believe that what I sit and say on this show, people are sat there at home like goldfish going, I must copy what Goldbridge says. I mean, literally, we've been doing this show for 6 years now, and virtually every show it's like, this is my opinion. You please have your own opinion. It's implored to have your own opinion. But I'll even do it for those people that think I do, and I feel really silly doing this. If you are somebody who watches my show or the United Stand or anything I do, and you take my opinion as you must copy it, then you would just be saying a player's shit. At what point have I ever said, go and physically abuse a player, go and threaten a player? I haven't. I actually haven't. And I also know that nobody would be stupid enough to go and do it if I said to do it. So, but if you are reading beyond me saying a player's shit and thinking that that's a green flag to go and break the law, please don't. I'm 100% against violence. I can't stand it. I used to work in a job dealing with it. I don't want to see it. I don't want anyone to be a victim of it, and I certainly don't want people being threatened with it. So if anybody out there thinks that it's a progression from disliking a footballer's performance in a Man United shirt or an England shirt to go and abuse them or threaten them, no. It's the same as what happened to Saka, Rashford and Sancho last summer. You miss a penalty for England, it's very disappointing. At what point do you think that disappointment on missing a penalty should then lead to wide-scale racist abuse? I don't actually think these people are football fans. I don't think they're Man United fans. I don't think they're England fans. Having worked in the job I worked in 10 years ago and seen protests and stuff, you get a protest for one thing, there are groups that will go and attach themselves to that protest. They don't believe in that protest. They just know it's an opportunity to go and have a bit of a riot. And I think there are bad people out there that see an opportunity where, there's an England player that's missed a penalty, and the racists think, I don't even like football, but I'm going to get in his replies and be racist, and they'll think it's football fans. I mean, it's not a big step. There are evil people out there that will attach themselves to something they've got no interest in to allow themselves to be vile. But, we're getting drawn back in. Valfi, thank you very much for becoming a member. Morning, I hope we'll be happy with Neves or Rumes, says Miko Roach. So, on the CDM position, it's very unlikely to be Tchouaméni, it's very unlikely to be Declan Rice, which therefore leads us to who's it going to be, and also is there an element of risk? And yeah, I think the minute you move away from Tchouaméni and Declan Rice as your CDM targets, there's a video on the members club actually. If you remember, do watch it. There's a video where we did Tchouaméni versus McTominay, but we brought Rice in and Neves in and Phillips in. We compared them all, and basically, as a summary of what that video is, Rice and Tchouaméni are up here, Neves, Phillips, Bissouma are here, and McTominay's here as a CDM. So if you're not getting Rice and Tchouaméni, and you're dropping down to Phillips and Neves, then you are dropping down. And therefore, if you're dropping down, it's a bigger risk. But you're stepping up from Fred, McTominay and Matic. So, I just personally think we're all very patient. Well, most of us are very patient about Erik ten Hag, and we're going to have to take time. We're also going to have to be patient with some of our signings because we're not going to get the elite signings this summer. I think every signing we make, there's going to be a level of, ooh, that could work, it might not work. If we get Calvin Phillips, he's definitely better than Matic and McTominay as a CDM, but he ain't as good as Tchouaméni and Rice, in my opinion. The same with Neves. So we're just going to... But we might be a Europa League team. So we're just going to have to be a little bit patient. What I would say is German reports are linking us to Konrad Laimer again. Now, this is a player I really like. I think this is a player that Erik ten Hag likes because of the Leipzig connection. He's not a CDM, but I'd like him to come into the club because he's a very, very energetic box-to-box player. And I've said this a few times. I don't know why people are obsessed with this one holding midfielder. The way Ajax play with Alvarez and Gravenberch, and the way that, you know, a lot of teams play, you don't necessarily have one holding midfielder, you can have two. And if you have two, they don't sit back. One will sit back, one will go forward. So, you know, Laimer could certainly do that. So I think that I'd like to see us buying two midfielders. Look, I suppose what I would say is this. If we were to... The three midfielders and two in the defence should be our priority. Maybe a striker in January, says Surash. I would rather sign Laimer and Basuma than just buy Calvin Phillips. Because I don't think there's a massive difference between Calvin Phillips and Basuma. And I think if you're not going to get the Rice or Tchouaméni, you may as well go for two. In relation to a striker, we're still talking about Nunez. He's still very much being spoken about. But we've got to have backup options to that because he might not be an easy deal to do. But as I said, I think you're looking at 4 or 5 players coming into United. Now, where it gets interesting, and I just wanted to drop this in as well, where it gets interesting, welcome to the Members Club, Daniel T. Where it does get interesting is that obviously I spend a lot of time on social media because I'm like, you know, always trying to find out what's going on and, you know, listen to what keep your finger on the pulse, etc. I did see something yesterday from a couple of outlets that I wanted to bring into the show. Watch German football a lot, and Konrad is a fantastic multifunctional defensive mid to box player. Why not sign 2 of these types? I agree, should he? I do agree. And in the position we are in, try to get one of those top CDMs. It would mean doing what we did with Maguire and overpaying Seb. Yeah, I mean, look, that's one of the issues with Declan Rice is you use a lot of your budget up, but I don't think we can get him anyway. I mean, God, I got clipped up again. I got just very quickly. Just before I move on to this next bit, I got clipped up again. I was on the trip. I mean, I just out of context nonsense. I got clipped up again. Like, there's this clip going round of apparently I'm xenophobic now. I'm a xenophobe now. I'm not only am I causing people to, you know, send emails to footballers, you know, threatening them, which is completely utterly ridiculous. And I absolutely do not condone it. It's disgusting behaviour. Also, now, because I said yesterday that with Erik ten Hag, we need to move away from the past of overspending on British players and start focusing on more foreign players because they're cheaper and have a better mentality. That's xenophobic now. Even though I am English, born English, got nothing against English people, apparently I'm anti-English now because I think some of our English players are shit. I mean, you just couldn't write the logic of these people who are sat at home, you know, steaming on an opinion that they can have themselves completely different and put it out there. You know, literally it was a throwaway segment in the preview yesterday where I basically said that if you look at Liverpool, their spine is Alisson, Matip, Van Dijk, Salah, Mane. I mean, Henderson's in there, he's English. Thiago. You look at Man City, all right, Stones is there, but Ederson, Diaz or Laporte. You've then got Rodri, Gundogan, De Bruyne. These teams have a very strong spine of foreign talent. And United, we don't have a spine. And look, it's a fact. It's a well-known fact. Speak to people in the industry. There are cliques in Man United's dressing room, and there is definitely an English clique. And unfortunately, the English clique at United this season has not done very well. But Bruno's Portuguese. He's not done well either. So it's not. What my point is not that we shouldn't buy English. I mean, I think Declan Rice would be a good signing. He'd just be very expensive, and that's what I'm talking about. For spending £80 million on Maguire or £50 million on Wan-Bissaka or £74 million on Sancho or £100 million on Declan Rice, if you went into the European market, which we haven't done, you would get all those players as good for half the price. And that's my point. Look at what Man City do. Look at what Liverpool do. They buy a lot of foreign players for cheaper than what we buy British players, and they're better. And what I'm saying is, under Eric Ten Hag, we need to start doing that. Whether it's a Conrad Lema, whether it's a Tchouaméni, whether it's a Darwin Núñez, those sort of signings are better than a Declan Rice and a Harry Kane that's going to blow 200 million straight away. We failed with this British obsession. It's not xenophobic or anti-English to say, don't buy English anymore, let's try a different path, because other clubs have done it and we failed at it. And guess what? It's an opinion. So if I'm sure everybody at home is sat there going, he's right, I hate English players. No, people will be going, I don't agree with that, I half agree with that, he's onto something, but does it really matter? I want Rice. It's just ridiculous. Do you think we will sign players soon or drag our heels? No, I think we will get working tidy. In fact, I know we're already working. As I said, United had sort of made a few phone calls to players before they got Ten Hag. They're now being contacted by players' agents now that we've got Ten Hag. Look, if you're Darwin Núñez's agent, you know he's leaving Benfica. You're talking to United, you're talking to 4 or 5 other clubs. So, look, things are going to happen. Ajax CDM is Martinez. He's more like Matic Carrick, a CDM who calm on the ball. It's a trend. When your team is fast-paced, you need a calming CDM, not a runner. Think Fabinho and Rodri, says T. Yeah. And also we've got Andrew saying, the annoying thing about our board is they don't get that any player we buy will become a big name and brand because they play for United. Buy for footballing reasons and the brand will sort itself. Great comment, Andrew. Welcome to Members Club, Rishab. Really appreciate that. But look, let's just talk about that for a minute, because there was a story this morning that Eric Ten Hag is really pro Marcus Rashford, and he sees him as part of the future and he wants him to have a new contract. Now, as soon as you read a comment like that, you're like, oh shit, there's a load of abuse coming in for Rashford. I mean, look, if I'm being completely fair, surely Rashford's being bullied then. If Maguire's being bullied, surely Rashford's being bullied, because Rashford has had ridiculous amounts of shit over the last 2 years. I like Rashford. I've always liked Rashford. I'll say he's been shit this year, and he has. And look, that's an opinion on a footballer. But I like Rashford. I think there's a player there. Is he not being bullied as well then? It's ridiculous. Like, they're just not playing well. They shouldn't be being picked. They should be dropped. We're watching a competitive sport for a club that we love. There's no problem with saying a player's shit and they shouldn't get picked. It's crossing the line of sending racist or threatening things to these human beings. It's just disgusting. But in relation to Rashford, should he get a new contract? No, he shouldn't get a new contract. How can you reward somebody who's on over £200,000 a week already with a new contract when they've been crap for 2 years? I don't care whether it's Marcus Rashford or Cristiano Ronaldo. We're Manchester United. The problem we've had over the last few years is that we've given silly money to players who aren't good enough. You've got to draw in this line in the sand. And if that means you end up losing Rashford, you end up losing Rashford. But you can't say, the new manager really likes you, sit down, how much do you want? Like, he's been bad for 2 years. He shouldn't be getting a new contract. I think we will give him a new contract. I don't think we should be giving him a new contract. Not because it's Rashford, but because I think it sends the wrong message out. You can be a bad player for 2 years, but sit down and we'll give you what you want. That's not what we should do. However, I do think he will be here next year, and I do think he should be given an opportunity, and I do think that Eric Ten Hag would probably look at him and think, I can get something out of him. So the contract thing for me, it's not massively important. What's massively important is that whether Eric Ten Hag thinks is that there's a player there. And I think there's a player there. So I'm not surprised he thinks there's a player there. But I've started to notice, and I saw a tweet about it, I'll come to it now. A cost-effective way for United to be successful would be to bring English players through our academy and buy foreign players cheaper. Win-win, says Clarkey. Yep. Ten Hag will look at the youth as well. Garner, Bernard, loan to Hull, looks a great defender. Yeah, keep an eye on Bernard, or however you pronounce it, Peter. He's a player to keep an eye on, definitely. Mark, would you be worried about Núñez's injury record? He's missed 20 games due to injury during his short career and also has had 2 knee injuries. Do you think it's a risk, says Greg? Yeah, well, look, you know what, Greg? I've been asked about this Núñez thing again. I think when you look at someone like Cavani's injury record, we never should have gone near him. It's loads of injuries over a long period of time. When you look at Núñez's injury record, it's a bad knee injury last summer followed up by a couple of minor problems. As long as he comes through the medical with good medical people, I'd sign him. I ain't going to not sign him because he had a bad knee injury on Who Scored or Transfer Market. So, no, I would still go for him. I've heard a few people talking about this. Alan Shearer did his knee in when he was at Blackburn or Southampton in the early 90s. He went on to be the Premier League's top scorer. And that's in the early 90s with an injury that could be a career ender. So, I don't worry about that. He's 22 years of age. He's had a bad knee injury. It wasn't even the worst type of knee injury. I think as long as we scrutinise it, there'll be a lot of people who want to buy him. So I think it's 100% a confidence thing with Rashford, and it will be down to Ten Hag to turn him into the player he was, says Nora. Well, I disagree. As a fan of Marcus Rashford, my issue with Rashford is this. He is a talented lad. I don't know whether it's because of what's going on around him. I don't know whether, like a lot of footballers these days, he's surrounded by yes men and he just won't look in the mirror and look at himself. But as I've said many times, not that they'd want to talk to me, but I wouldn't mind having 5 minutes with some of these players because they can vent at me if they like. I don't care. But what I would say to them is, look, whether you want to listen to what I'm saying or anybody else is saying, the reality is the best advice I can give you is to buy a big mirror and look in it at least for 5 minutes every day and say to this, I'm the one in control of the praise. I'm the one in control of the criticism. If you're getting criticism, the only person to blame is the person looking back at you in the mirror. You are being criticised by the vast majority of United fans because you are playing badly. You look like you're not interested. You look like you don't care, and you're playing badly. That's why you're being criticised. So that person looking back at you in the mirror, he is driving the criticism. If you start playing well, that criticism will become praise. And I think that's what Rashford and everyone else needs to do, because I think that they are playing badly and I think they are driving the criticism themselves. It's not unfair criticism when these lads are being stuffed at the Etihad and Anfield and Everton and playing terribly. You know, it's almost like some people don't think that these results happened. There are standards of wearing a United shirt, and many fans are saying you shouldn't be wearing a United shirt. You're not good enough. That's not unfair. But when I think there is a confidence issue with Rashford, but also there's an issue around his game. Closing his eyes when he's heading the ball, that needs to be worked on. Final ball needs to be worked on. Shooting from silly angles needs to be worked on. Delivery of a final cross instead of getting his head down and running into a blind alley. Ultimately, there are major issues around Rashford's game at the moment, and it is a coaching issue, and he needs to solve it, and he needs to be open to solving it. But his general game is too easy to read. He needs to simplify his game. He gets his head down and shoots. He gets his head down and he runs into angles. His passing is abysmal. So these are all things he can work on, but they're basics. Does he want to go back to the basics, or does he think he's beyond the basics? That's what we need to see. Look at when we signed Rude, says Seb Watson. Yeah, good point. What are your thoughts on us getting Jude Bellingham? Rahul, no one's getting Jude Bellingham, not this summer. Hi Mark, who do you think Ten Hag will sign first, says Corey? I think the great thing is we don't know. We don't know, Corey. And it's a new dawn at Man United with the new manager. I'd like to see at least half the team gone. Which leads nicely onto this combination article that sort of came out yesterday afternoon, evening. I know they spoke about it on the 8 o'clock show last night. So I don't know where this is coming from. It might be leaks from the club. It certainly will have been discussed in the interview. Now, some people are taking this as a little bit of a negative. We've got to be careful of this negative. Right, listen to this. So basically, there was this story coming out from a few different places last night in the UK that Erik Ten Hag has sort of compartmentalised the current squad. He wants 5 or 6 signings, but he's looked at the squad and said, Ronaldo, De Gea, Bruno, Varane, Sancho. They're the elite players in the team that he can build the team around. There's then people like Fred, Rashford, McTominay, and I think maybe Shaw or someone like that he feels he can improve and be part of the first team squad. And then the rest of them, basically, you'll have to just see what he thinks. Now, this has caused some people to add names in and also generate this whole Ten Hag has already been manipulated to play people like Maguire, McTominay, Rashford. He's only been given the job if he's going to use those players. That helps nobody. That story helps nobody. So basically, he's already a puppet because he's already been told that he's got to use Rashford, Maguire, McTominay, and I just think that that's not fair because, if we're behind this manager, we're behind this manager. You're not behind the manager if already you're going, wow, he's clearly been told to play Rashford, Maguire and McTominay, so, he's already a puppet. I mean, I've got to be honest, I'm not the biggest fan of Scott McTominay, for example. I'm not. And the only reason I'm not a big fan of him is because I've never really seen him play well. I know a player who plays football. I'm not going to say for what club. I think he's a brilliant footballer. I know for a fact he's an arsehole off the pitch. So if I didn't like people, I'd say I don't like him as a player. I'll always look at the player. I know footballers. I know a couple at Man United who are crap, but they're really nice people off the pitch. But I'll still say they're crap. So for me, it's always about what the player is. Now, it wouldn't surprise me if Erik ten Hag saw something in Scott McTominay, because Mourinho did, Solskjaer did, we know Sir Alex likes him. I remember speaking to Ben Foster at Watford, and he was saying, I think we did it on a show, he said that, look, when we played them in the Cup, on the bus home, people were saying how hard McTominay is to play against. He's so physical, he's so hard. So there's a lot of evidence that whatever it is about McTominay, there is something there that a lot of people like. Now, for me, I'm not going to go on anecdotes. I'm not going to go on stories on the bus. I'm going to go on what I see on the pitch. I see a player that hardly ever goes on the ball as a CDM. If Rodri's averaging 80 passes a game, he's averaging 40. He doesn't pick up the runners. I just don't think he's a very good CDM. I've always said I think he might be a better box-to-box player. But in fairness to the lad, he's not had any development like anybody's had for 3 years. But I'll tell you this, and I know this for a fact. There is a club in Europe that would definitely be in the top 10 clubs in Europe that have inquired about Scott McTominay in the last year. I know that. So, whatever I think or whatever you think, there is something about that lad that not only United people like, but other people like. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. We don't see it, but other people are seeing it. So I wouldn't be surprised if Erik ten Hag sees something in him. And what I would say is I wouldn't sell him in the summer. I certainly think he's not a bad player to have around the squad. For me, he's always a bench player. And if he wants to play first team football, he should be looking for a move. But I mean, we know we're not going to sell McTominay. So I think it's unfair that people go, oh, Ten Hag's a puppet because he's going to pick Rashford, Maguire and McTominay. There's something there with McTominay. I don't see it, but there is something there, and I can be open and honest enough to say that, I might get proved wrong. I might do. But on what we've seen of him so far, I think he's very, very average. But there's something there. With Rashford, there's something there. With Maguire, he's an £80 million centre-back that no one's going to buy. I mean, so same with Wan-Bissaka as well. No one's going to buy them. So they are going to be here next year. I would flip it around, and if anybody's thinking about being negative towards Ten Hag because he's going to keep Rashford, Maguire, McTominay, Wan-Bissaka, flip it the other way. Who's going to buy him? He can't sell everybody, and he's going to have to work with some players that some fans think aren't worth working with. Serie A players like Berardi, Lozano, Barella, Bastoni, Ragnagnelli are some gems we should look into. Asher, we never really do look in Serie A. I agree. I love Tonali as well. Barella. You talk a lot about how people should not be racist, but a year ago you referred to... No, I didn't. No, I didn't, Mandy. We'll be blocking you for that. Bloody hell. Some people just think you can do a super chat and character assassinate somebody. Just absolutely ridiculous. Mark, Chelsea has made equally bad signings as Man United in the past few years. However, their ruthless mindset and excellence in player development, academy, etc. make them eternal contenders, says Rickster. And Shuddy, biggest issue with the big English signings is the press circus around them. Either they crumble under the pressure or the constant undeserved praise makes them complacent. Press is the issue, says Shuddy. Look, if we're throwing blame, if we're playing the blame game, at least fans come from a place of purity. The media, where are they coming from? The club, Man United, where are they coming from? I think fans do come from a place of, in the main, that I think if you ran a poll on the United fan base, the vast majority of United fans who moan are moaning because they want the club to be successful. Is that what the media want? Is that what the club want? The club want success, but they want money. Jacob, thank you very much for your super chat there. So, yeah, lots and lots to discuss. And I think a lot of it will have to move across to the 8 o'clock show tonight because I've still got loads and loads to go through. But I'm very aware that we've got Ralph Rangnick's press conference at 11:30 this morning. So we'll be back live in just over an hour. So I don't want to drag on a show when I'm going to be back very, very soon. But, Mark, United need to rebuild and get the right players like Koundé and Rice and Haaland. Winston, I think you make a great point in the sense that it's a bad point because we're not going to get those type of players. And I actually don't want those type of players, Winston. I don't want Haaland. I don't want Rice. I don't want superstar signings in when we need to rebuild a whole squad. 1 or 2 world-class players is not going to solve the problem of 25 players in a squad. It needs a complete and utter teardown. It needs a complete and utter rebuild. These cliques, these bad mentalities, these weak mentalities, they need putting out. And the only way you're going to do that is volume. Volume. Straight away, Erik ten Hag needs this summer 5 or 6 players that are brand new on July the 1st that walk in that door loyal to him. Because straight away, he's got a strong clique there. Then you'll get some of the players that are willing for change that will come on board as well. And you'll still have some toxic players, but they will be the minority instead of the majority. And one of the great things that I read, which I really, really loved, and I'll save this till last. Absolutely loved this. I think it was in The Athletic and it was in a few outlets as well. At no point did Manchester United's board consider any opinion from any player. The article actually said that the club took it on board that player power had become a problem in the club that had been born in the Mourinho era, and that actually if a player wanted a certain manager, the best advice was to go opposite to what the player wanted. So, whether that's true or whether it's spin from the club to make the board look good, because I must admit, I did read something this week that the board were unanimous that Erik ten Hag should get the job. Well, we know that's bollocks. They weren't unanimous at all. They may have been at the end, but they weren't. They weren't always behind Ten Hag. Pochettino got as far as contract negotiations. So Pochettino was very much in the race, and there were people on that board that wanted him. But I will let that go because they ended up with the right man, and I'm sure we'll all let that go. But the great thing to hear is that no player was ever seriously considered to be spoken to. And that's 100% correct. Absolutely 100%. And Nkunku is worth 35 million. I would definitely get him, says Sean. Well, if you're a member of the club, Sean, make sure you watch the video we've got going up at 1 o'clock. It's a head-to-head Bruno versus Nkunku, comparing all their stats from passing to tackling to shooting to assists. A real deep dive into the two players. That'll be going up on the members section at 1 o'clock. So if you are a member, look out for that. If you're not a member, please become a member and support the channel. We're back at just before midday with a Ralph Rangnick press conference reaction. So I will see you for that. Thanks everyone this morning. Smash a like on the video. Make sure you subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. And remember, we're almost going to have to do disclaimers from now on. Remember, this is a fan community. It's a great fan community. And you must always have your own opinion. But be respectful with it. And don't just go being sheep, listening to things and thinking it's true. And then turning it into something illegal. Which I know you don't anyway, but, some people think that's what happens. I don't know if you noticed, Mark, but Louis van Gaal, Jose, etc. were announced as head coaches, but Eric is first-team manager, says Gamer Reaper. Yeah, you're not the first person to say that. Whether that means anything different or not, I don't know. Obviously, we don't know whether we're going to get McLaren. There's a lot of talk about Mitchell coming in. These would be very positive moves for the club as well, so I wouldn't be surprised if they did it. The club seems to be, and I've had this from somebody firsthand within the club at the moment is on a positive drive of campaign. Like they just want to relentlessly go positive. So I wouldn't be surprised if we ended up with Mitchell. Anyway, I will see you in just over an hour for Ralph Rangnick's press conference. I'm sure that's going to be interesting because I'm sure he'll get asked about 20 questions about Harry Maguire and Ronaldo and Erik ten Hag. So we should have some interesting things to discuss on that. Thanks for watching. Take care. I'll speak to you